Inflation for most people is causing them to use their credit cards to try and make up for income shortfalls. How big is this problem? In the second quarter of 2022, Americans added $46 billion to their credit card balances. Some of that could be you. The Federal Reserve Consumer Credit Report showed that the rate of interest on credit cards went from 14.56 to 16.65%. Those Americans struggling with credit card debt saw their delinquency rates escalate from 1.66% to 1.81%. The Cambridge Debt Consolidation Program may be able to help you reduce the interest rates by 2/3 and cut your time to pay off the debt from 30 years to as little as 5 years. If you're struggling and you want professional and objective help getting your credit house in order, then call 1-855-435-2066.
The Black and White Network now proudly presents Moms Across America, a new program where women can speak their minds openly and freely without fear of reprisal. Moms Across America is about the issues of the day confronting America from a mom's point of view. And now, here are the moms.
Hello and welcome to Moms Across America. This is Vicki Tompkins with my co-host Ann Ubelis, and we are so happy to be with you here today. But before we get started, you know I have my commercial. Okay, you can get your free Constitution at ashbrook.org/Constitution. We all need to know what this country is founded on and what we can fight for and what our rights are. So now we're going to get right into the show. We are so excited to have Jeffrey Prather. Am I saying that correctly?
You are.
Awesome. You know, being from the South, you never know if the words are going to come out right. We're happy to have him, Major Jeffrey Prather, with us. He's U.S. Army. Is that right?
Yes.
Retired?
Yes.
50 years. You don't even look 50. 50 years of real world experience as a master martial artist, a federal law enforcement, special agent, firearms instructor, military intelligence officer, and special operator. Has extensive operational experience both domestically and abroad, and has taught units of all military branches, including many separate special operations intelligence. I'm doing this really fast, and law enforcement agencies. And you are the founder of the Warrior School team?
I am, yes.
Okay. And you've been training U.S. Army, Marines, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard since 1995. Wow, that seems such a long time ago, doesn't it?
And I'm 66, by the way.
Well, you look really good for 66.
Well,
Whatever
you.
that's supposed to look like, you don't look 66. The thing that I liked the most when I was reading through some of your bio is you said, most importantly, we train responsible citizens who ultimately bear ultimate responsibility to ensure our lives and freedom. That takes all the responsibility off the government and puts it back on us, we the people. That's how it's supposed to be. Wow, you have an amazing background. I was just like, man, this guy is awesome. I have great respect for the military anyway, because I have 4 brothers who served in the military, and I know what our family went through, not seeing them often. So with all your experience and everything, I just thank you. Thank you so much for your service. So how do we want to get into this, Annie? There's so many avenues that we can go through on this. Do you have a question to get us started?
Well, I want to mention that he is also the AMP News Intelligence Officer, and he also has his own show, The Prather Report. Did I get that right? I think I got that right. I'm going off the top of my
Prather Point, yes, at jeffreyprather.com.
Prather Point, yes.
And jeffreyprather.com is my main site now, but I have the Prather Brief on American Media Periscope. I also have christchaplaincy.com as well.
We have to mention you are a chaplain too, so praise. There is so much to start talking about in the news, and it's hard to say where you want to start, but the recent statistics coming out of the federal government has shown that the United States now is the #1 place for child sex trafficking. And we have a sitting president that just does not care about securing our borders, which is allowing us to be a haven. And the numbers around that I was hearing last night on the news about the child sex trafficking here in the United States is astronomical. How did we get to this point, and how are we going to get ourselves out of it?
Well, thanks for having me, and a special thanks to be with moms. So I have Inde Apache heritage, and tribal traditions really honor motherhood, especially. And it's so important. I always say we should follow our Judeo-Christic and native roots. And the Judaic commandments are the 10. The 2 Christic commandments, of course, come from Deuteronomy and Numbers. But there's also 2 native commandments, and that is never harm children, and everything is born of woman, the honoring mother. So for me, as a traditional Inde Apache warrior, it's a special honor to be with you ladies today. And just like at the resurrection, the men were too afraid, and it's the ladies doing a lot today. So I want to acknowledge you all up front for all of that. And, spent a lot of time in Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, was stationed at Fort Bragg, spent a lot of time at Fort Benning as well. But really, I have done a bit of child rescue. Tim Ballard and I have similar careers in that he was CIA, I was DIA, he went to DHS, I went to DEA, and I worked the border for a long time. But I would say that Biden, or Pedo Joe, as I call him, because he's always sniffing and fondling and groping and biting children, is really part of this. I've been saying this since the Obama administration, that Obama pimped kids and Biden is pimping kids. And I think I can show that as a former Drug Enforcement Administration special agent, very familiar with evidence and proof, and as a former Defense Intelligence Agency intelligence officer presenting analyzed information. I talk about the deep state, or the double government, which are the puppeteers behind the puppets, because Fetterman and Biden and Harris are clearly puppets that can barely function and speak. And as a whistleblower under Fast and Furious, it came out in federal trial, in the Niebla Zambada trial, that the DEA had a deal with the Sinaloa cartel to run guns north in exchange for the ATF guns going south. So the dark economy is people, weapons, and drugs. And in this case, it is people, and it is the most sacred and innocent children, because America and Europe are awash in drugs. They are drenched in drugs. And so the new product is children, because they can walk themselves across the border. They can be raped repeatedly. They can be impregnated to generate more product. And that is the evil. It's not crazy. This is engineered evil. This is manufactured malice. And this is how dark the deep state has become.
Well, I know when, for a long time, I have looked at a lot of things, even as a young child. I started fighting certain things like abortion and stuff like that. And over the years, just doing research and talking to individuals, I knew things were going on, but when you're young, you don't always know how to put all the pieces together. And as I got older, I started seeing there's more to this than what we're seeing on the surface. So, my husband and I have worked with young people for 25 years, throughout the nation. And we see certain things, and we know things are happening. But like I said, I think a lot of us don't know how to pinpoint that. I know things are happening here in my own community, but it's like there's so many people involved in it and engaged in it. What can a mom do to understand this better and actually help prevent, say, like a child in their neighborhood from getting trafficked, their own child from getting trafficked? I mean, I watched the movie Sound of Freedom, and I was like, finally, the truth is getting exposed.
Well, did we freeze up there?
No, we're all good.
Okay. So I agree. The Sound of Freedom finally is breaching the cover, which is the concealment of the deep state's dark economy. And I want to encourage that opening very clearly. But I really want to emphasize that America is headquarters for child rape and for drug trafficking. And that really didn't come out so much. And this is really being run by our own government. So I've shown how our government ran drugs and ran guns, but Senior Special Agent Ted Gunderson, who was the LA division chief of the FBI back in the day, exposed the McMartin school tunnels and satanic practices. Now that was covered up in lawfare, but the tunnels have since been proven as well. And the FBI's own vault that you can look up shows the finders are connected back to the CIA. And so now what we see today is agents that I've worked with in Border Patrol, Customs and Border Protection, ICE, Immigration Customs Enforcement, they're really trafficking children into hotels from San Diego to New York. It's one thing to put kids in a big open enclosure, but to put them in private hotel rooms, that's really a brothel, a child brothel, and it's happening here. How it can be stopped is there has to be a moral core. So a lot of people just want to talk about executive orders or politics or legal cases, and that will never solve this. That's treating the symptoms of the problem. So Benjamin Franklin said, when some lady asked him, what kind of government are you giving me? He said, a republic if you can keep it. And his requirement for having a republic was a virtuous populace. And virtues come from ethics, and national ethics come from morals. And I say our essential American morals depend upon our exceptional love of life and freedom. That's really what makes America exceptional. We love life and freedom so much that we'll send our sons and daughters out to fight, kill, and die for it. We love life and freedom so much that we'll send our sons and daughters out to foreign lands to fight, kill, and die for it. And we win. And the American warrior always wins when they are unleashed, which is rare, really hasn't happened since World War II, because the world has never seen the equal of the American warrior. We do something exceptional. We give that country back because we have such an exceptional love of life and freedom. Now, that is no longer true because our core morals of Judaic, 10 commandments, Christic, 2 commandments, and 2 native commandments, which I just mentioned, have been subverted, and the American government no longer follows those. The first Bible was published by Congress for use in public schools, not just for grammatical syntax, but also for moral codes. And so we don't have that anymore. And so that's the problem.
I have a question.
That's the source of the problem.
All
You
right.
have to build so you should homeschool. My wife homeschools our kids. You should home church, get away from big church. You should homework. You got to get off their economy because they're paying you less. So it all comes back to the homes. And unfortunately, it puts more on the moms.
Well, here's my question, because I'm coming from a law enforcement background also. Eddie Burns, a friend of mine I went to the academy with, was murdered on the orders of a drug lord. I have another friend, Bob Machadi, who a friend of mine, an INS agent, escorted him across the border 3 times and came back to kill police officer Machadi. So I'm looking at it from a different perspective. What can we do to actively identify these children and help rescue them? What can we do as everyday people? Do we hold our school boards more accountable to make sure the children are actually showing up to school? Are we training these teachers to look for problems with these children that might identify them as someone being trafficked or abused? What can we physically do to help rescue?
So, okay, your sister in law enforcement, awesome, but you got to understand that law enforcement has been corrupted. The cops have been cuckolded. So I graduated from the FBI Academy because the DA school was in the FBI Academy back then. They were always going to roll them together. Didn't happen. But the National Academy is where police officers go to be groomed to be police chiefs. And then they get on federal task forces such as the JTTF, Joint Terrorism Task Force, the HIDTA, High Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force, the OCDF, Organized Crime Drug Enforcement Task Force. I've been on all of them, but once you are on the federal teat, then you are under federal control, and really the feds control you, and the feds are behind this. The FBI is not a law enforcement organization. It's an intelligence organization that does psyops with law enforcement capabilities, right down to law enforcement. The public schools have been pedoed. The trannies are teachers. You've got to get the kids out of there. If you cannot afford to get the kids out of there, then you don't want cowardly cops like you've had in Florida and in Uvalde who do nothing at all. They are cowards, and the moms were braver. Then you need to get dads on duty to rotate in to those schools themselves. But the cops don't have skin in the game. The moms and dads are the ones with skin in the game. SROs, school resource officers, are supposed to be mentors, and they're not worth being mentors to because there's nothing to look up to. They're not stopping anything because Uvalde was about taking the water from California. It was also about the mimetic warfare that a whole bunch of cops, almost 400 cops with long guns, couldn't stop a single guy with a long gun. And that then showed up on the Tucson school board with Adelita Grijalva saying, we don't need more school security because we just saw that it didn't work in Uvalde. So the government is totally corrupted. You've got to work from the ground up with city and county local law enforcement. If you can find them, the rare constitutional sheriffs, there aren't many, to get off federal task forces, but families are going to have to do it themselves from the ground up to identify these traffickers and do something about it.
Well, thank you for that. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. And I want to get into some more about what parents can do to notice what's happening. We'll be right back.
We are Americans, male and female, from many races and cultures from all over the world. One thing above all else is we are patriots who protect our nation and defend, when necessary, our Constitution from attacks both foreign and domestic. Today, as American patriots, we must take back our country from those who want to destroy it and us. We must start by taking back our children and their education. Parents, not unions, should be in charge of our children's education. We must be sure that they are taught about the greatness of America and its people. Our children should not be indoctrinated with the belief that parents are racist and are evil and trying to destroy the world. As patriots, we must take back our country from foreign nations who want to destroy us and our way of life. Yes, as patriots, we want America to be first. We want an open and fair trade policy, energy independence, safe cities, and secure borders where we can grow and prosper as a nation of free people. Become an American patriot. Help take back America by voting Republican.
Moms Across America. I'm Annie Ubelis with my co-host and hostess of the mostest, Vicki Tompkins. And our guest is Major Jeffrey Prather. And welcome back. And Vicki, go ahead.
Well, when we were going out, you were talking a little bit about, we had kind of touched on a little bit about what can we do as an individual, as a mom who says, I'm just a mom. I can't do, well, please stop saying you're just a mom. Moms are absolutely amazing. We need some specifics. I'm a very detailed type person. I'm a goal-oriented type person. And I think most moms have to have that kind of scheduling type thing when you have children. Can you give us some keys, some ideas on what we could do that we can be more mindful and watchful in our area, in our world of influence, so that we can see things and say, oh, that doesn't look right, and maybe do something about it or report it or something. What can we do as moms?
Yeah, certainly. I've taught a lot of courses in this over the years, Safe Kids courses, Ladies Fight Back, at many levels. And so again, it all starts in the home. You got to have conversations with your kids morning, noon, and night, or if they're not home at noon. Encourage them to get out of public school, but if they can't, I understand that. But we'll go over some real basic procedures. So 75% of this happens because people are unaware. They are really not paying attention to their surroundings. So they're down, they're looking at their phones, especially at night where the light just goes to their phones. And so that's what the predators do. They flock the herd So they flock the herd from behind and they flank from the side. And usually that's what's happening. So the 75% of this could be said by having conversations regularly with your children at the dinner table, especially where there are conversations, but then a color code alert system is really good. So white is you're not alert, you're not paying attention. If you saw American Sniper where he's staring at the blank TV, he's on white because he's on so overload for such a long time, he just can't stay there. So he had to desensitize from that. Yellow is your normal public alertness. You know what's behind you, what's around you. You can stay in a state of yellow all the time, very healthy. Orange is when your antenna, your ears go up, something doesn't look right. So for example, that would be kids walking along, suddenly crosses the street. There's no reason, there's no car, there's no door, and all of a sudden they're crossing the street coming towards the child. That should go to orange. Their antenna, their ears should go up in detail. And then red is when somebody is in with arm's reach of you. And so those different color codes activate different decision trees. So white, you should never be on white outside your home. You should always have yellow normal alertness. You should also be able to turn your head and look, whether it's children or deer, the predators work the same way. A cougar will come up behind a deer because a prey animal has their eyes on the side. They can look differentiated to look for threats. They solve by fleeing. We are predator animals and we solve by preying. So right behind, one of the things is when I'm teaching is check your 6 o'clock behind you, which is turning your head both ways to make sure. So this is a scan. This is actually something I teach kids and ladies to turn and not walk backwards, because then you're walking into the unknown. You want to always walk into the known, especially at night, and walk away from walls, and of course not talk to strangers or something. And then if someone is coming towards you, then and you didn't pick them up, you didn't do your scan. And this is something kids, and I encourage kids to practice all the time, and ladies too, is just throughout the day do your scan and see who you can pick up. And one way I teach that is as they're I'll have a group of ladies or kids walking across the room. They got to pass each other, and then I'll hold up fingers. And so they've got to input the information, analyze it. He held up 2 fingers and then put it out 2. So that's what intelligence is. Information comes in, it gets analyzed, and it gets put out. That's the way intelligence is supposed to work. So turning and seeing that working, and then understanding that when someone gets in arm's reach of you, that's red. So red activates a state of emergency. That activates a decision tree. What people do under crisis is freeze, flee, or fight. People freeze because they aren't trained. I've arrested probably 500 guys at gunpoint. A lot of them froze. I'm saying, Manos arriba, hands up, and they're just frozen because they were about to get rich on a drug deal, and all of a sudden there's me with my submachine gun. So they're just, it's a deer in the headlight. They can't react for a while. So with training, you can overcome freezing. If at all possible, you should flee, always flee. If you are a lady or a child, this isn't one of those stupid movies, I forget the Demi Moore, where she's pretending to be a SEAL. So we men don't do a lot of things better than you ladies and children, but we do fight better, and we can take more abuse, period. It's not a fantasy film. If we take a woman of equal height or a kid of equal height and we start slugging each other, your muscular structure and muscles will collapse before mine do, because we're just built for it. So you should not fight unless you have to. You should flee. If you have to flee and into an unknown area, then you should always try and go to a strange lady rather than a strange man. Why? Because there's a maternal instinct in real ladies, and they will probably take care of you. I've seen much more participation through the ladies, just like at the resurrection, than I do from the guys, including my fellow veterans who are hanging back. So freeze, flee, or fight. If you are going to have to fight, then you should cover up, get your hands up where you're covering up this triangle area. So all our main senses are in this main area here. Eyes, visual input, our biggest one, auditory, nose, mouth, brain stem, throat. This area has to be protected. Hands get up here. Then right up here, heart and lungs have to be protected with elbows. So that becomes key to keep that up. It's not that you're not going to get hit. It's just that if your hands are up and you get cut or you get hit or something, then you're not out of the fight, because once you're knocked out, then they can take you, throw in the van, whatever you want to do. That's real important to understand. Beyond that, understand that the pillars of lethal force, that is when you can activate lethal force before they corrupted the law with Blantifa and Trantifa and all the covert riots, the pillars of deadly force are attempted murder, kidnapping, which is really kidnapping, even though it refers to a goat, we got goats, armed robbery, and rape, because you can be raped to death. Those activate the pillar of deadly force. If you fear for your life or someone else's life in your immediate vicinity, and they have the means, intent, and ability to execute that threat. The second pillar of deadly force is then serious physical harm or grievous bodily injury. And that means basically, depends upon the state, but basically that means that you can't defend yourself. That means you get tied up, or even if you get proned out on your belly. Proned out on your belly, you cannot defend yourself. So that executes another decision tree right there. If they say I'm going to tie you up, or I'm going to put you on your belly. No, you got to go. You got to go for it, for something. Now that then activates fighting classes, self-defense classes. That's a whole nother subject that can activate blade defense, handgun defense, lots of things I teach there. But 75% of this problem can be solved with discernment if you are alert, because distance buys you time, and time buys you survivability. So those are some of the most important tips that can be taught very easily. And I've taught these classes for decades to hundreds of people at high schools and grade schools and colleges and universities. But it all really comes back to moms and dads sitting down and training their children for all of this. I train my children for all of this. And there's always a plan to get out, or a plan to do something. Now, the plans will never survive first contact, but the plan has you thinking. So you don't want to think as a victim, you want to think as a survivor, and how I'm going to get out of this and get back to those who love and need me, because if they aren't there as a mom or as a child, there's this huge gaping hole in their life that cannot be fulfilled. And I always say this as It's a Wonderful Life movie. At the end of the movie, I always ask, because I watch that every year, so I don't feel sorry for myself. And at the end of the movie, everybody comes up, I'm like, but who saves the day? And I'll ask you, who saves the day in It's a Wonderful Life? The mom. The kids go, is daddy in trouble? And she goes, yeah, daddy's in trouble. She goes, should we pray for him? Yeah, we should pray for him. And the mom saves the day. So when I'm teaching kids or moms, I always say, imagine yourself at your own funeral and the big gap that you've left of all the people that are going to depend on you, and then fight, and keep whatever happens to you. And it's terrible what happens. Real violence is not shown on TV.
Well, are there any online resources that parents can go to tell them what the signs are if they do think maybe the child's being groomed online or being groomed by someone in the neighborhood? Are there resources for parents to say, all right, fine, these are possible signs. Let me sit my kid down. Let's have a heart-to-heart conversation, or other things that they can use in which to block those sites so that they can help protect their children. Are there any online resources?
Yeah, I have a lot of resources of this type in my shop at jeffreyprather.com. They can also look at Colonel Dave Grossman's Stop Teaching Our Kids to Kill. He's done a lot of research on the psychology of what happens in folks' minds about that. And I talk about this all the time on my shows as well. Gavin DeBecker's Gift of Fear is another great resource of this. And getting into a martial art or self-defense class that really focuses on this. And it should be somebody who has military or police experience or has laid hands on folks as well. On the color code, and you might know this as a former Leo yourself, is there's also an extra color code on there, and that's black because cops have to lay hands on people when they're cuffing them. And so that isn't really a lethal force. So they put black as an actual lethal force situation on there. But there's lots of resources out there. And the most important thing is not just to read about it, but to then talk about it and do it at a local level. Again, I am not advocating for SRO cops. I'm advocating for dads on duty and moms on duty rotating through the schools if they can't get out of the public schools, which are simply there now to groom the kids. They are done. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't go to school board meetings and fight back, but understand that our children are not safe. That has been proven from Florida to Texas over and over. That's their plan. And we can't let them control the terrain.
One of the things that I recommend to parents, if you cannot homeschool your children, you need to visit your school. Now, during COVID, while COVID was over and the schools were opening up, my daughter went to see my granddaughter at school, and she brought her lunch, and it was a field day, the last days of school when they have all the activities. And she went in to have lunch with my granddaughter, and she was told she couldn't enter the school. For my daughter and her family, that was the nail in the coffin, and she pulled her. So she's homeschooling her for the first year this time. This is her first year homeschooling. And I got to tell you, I commend her for that, because I know if my children were still at school age today, I would be homeschooling. I would make whatever sacrifice needed to be made to homeschool my child. And I know there's single parents out there, so I know there's always going to be some who cannot homeschool. However, if your child is in school, mom, you need to take a day off work and go down to that school and sit in that classroom. Being in education is about background. When we saw a parent coming into the school just to visit, just to sit in the class with their child, we knew that parent was engaged. I can count on one hand how many times that happened.
That's a great point. And let me address that for a second. Is the visits should be surprise visits too. They should be regular, and you shouldn't schedule it at all. And if they won't let you in, you should pull them right now. I've had a martial arts school for since 1990 for 33 years. I always encourage the parents to sit there and watch. I used to have, before COVID, a lot of public school parents bringing their kids to me because I knew how to discipline them. And kids actually want discipline because when they're disciplined, they know they are protected and they want to be challenged, which is exactly the opposite of what they're being told. But I'll tell you, after COVID, which is really a mind virus, a psyop to control everything, that really fell off. And I learned as I talked to these public school teachers how poorly educated they were. They knew almost nothing about anything. They were being very much propagandized. And so children, they can also, if there's ever a stranger, they should say no. So that's the next thing is
that's
to
what
go
I tell
from
my
a
kids.
reactive position to direct no loud so everybody can hear, and put the hand up here, and the hand up here then prevents the grab from here. So the hand goes to the grab. Now they are taking proactive control of the fight, and they've grabbed my hand instead of my throat. And for kids, then they lock hands like this to pull away with their whole body to get out of that. And so that's the next stage of going from, I missed my scan, okay, but I picked somebody up, I'm reacting, but now I'm going to go proactive and make him react to me and say, no, you're a stranger. And so that should be said loud. So some people say fire, something like no fire, because they look over and go, there's no fire. She's crazy. So say no, take command. No, you're a stranger, identify. And then if they still grab, then have them grab your wrist so that they're not grabbing your throat. And then from there, there's wrist releases. And that's the beginning of what I call building the fight. Okay. But that's after all of the observations and using the color code, threat codes to go all through this. And I'll also say that since you ladies are so interested in details, when you're practicing this stuff, it should be done slowly so that you do it right. Everybody fights and shoots too fast and they do it poorly. They watch too many movies. And so in a crisis situation, several things are going to happen. You're going to get a synaptic startle response where your body's going to react real fast. You may void yourself. I've arrested plenty of guys at gunpoint that have peed themselves. It's not a problem. On D-Day and 9/11, people poop themselves. It's your body voiding itself, preparing for action. Then you're going to get adrenaline dump. So the synaptic startle response is going to make you fast. The adrenaline dump is going to make you strong. And this is when you hear about grandma picking up the pickup truck off the kid. That does happen. So you don't need to train at that level because your body, we are wonderfully and fearfully made, will come through at the time. So you just go through slowly as you establish what used to be called muscle memory and is now really intelligent synaptic energy path that you want to respond to everything. So that's the beginning. So going from here to know, so the attention is up here. And we practice this stuff. And this is the way that you develop a proactive approach. So there's proactive is I'm looking, reactive I missed, I'm going back to proactive, I'm taking back control of the fight.
Thank you so much. So jeffreyprather.com, you can go there and get some of these things in detail, moms. It's really important that we know this. I taught my children, if anybody tried to touch them, you scream no at the top of your lungs. And those are the types of, that's just something simple and basic that you can teach your children. So thank you, sir, for being with us today. It has been enjoyable hearing your experience and everything. I really want to we gotta have you back because I want to get into some of the things that you've seen in your work as far as with children who are in trafficking and if there's anything we can do to help pull them out. I've worked with organizations who help after the fact when kids are brought out, and we help them get their footing, basically get back to real life.
I'd be happy to come back for single moms. I know there's a lot of divorce rate is you've got to find especially for young boys, but even young girls, dads are essential. If the dad died or divorced, they make it. But if there was never a dad there to claim and protect them, they're not going to make it. So you need to find, even if you don't have a husband, you need to find, I've been a foster dad, a god dad to many grown up, and it needs to be a masculine guy, a dangerous dad that is dangerous to the predators. The predators are interviewed. They say, what do you look for? I look for where there's no dangerous dad. So you need to find a dangerous dad. Don't be safe, be dangerous.
Yes. Well, thank you so much. We have come to the end of the show. I can't believe it goes by so very fast. But moms across America, always remember, you are America, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
God bless.
Thank you for joining us today, and we'd like to hear your comments or questions. So go to bwradionetwork.com. That's bwradionetwork.com and give us your questions or comments. And thanks for joining us today.